Hey, everybody. Before we get to another great interview, please do me a favor and subscribe. Whether you're watching us on YouTube, MeisterCon Pod, or you're listening on meistercon.com or your favorite podcasting app, please help us out by subscribing. Now, let's get to that interview. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. So excited today. I've got actor Mackenzie Gray with me. So welcome, Mackenzie.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So we were talking, offline before we started recording about people sending you stuff where they have seen you do something years ago, and they've seen that. Well, I was doing the same type of thing before we started talking. So I was trying to figure out what was the earliest thing that I had seen you in. So I'm gonna give you a couple. You tell me which one was earlier.
All right.
Okay. So I've got three. So I'm nerdy. So this one, I think this is the answer, but maybe not. But Forever Night.
Yeah.
Right. You did it. You did that one.
It was 1990.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No,
that's what I thought.
91.
91, which was kind of an underrated show. It wasn't too bad for a vampire show. Pretty good.
It was definitely it was the first of its idea of putting a vampire in a regular situation where he's got to function like a human.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. So okay, so Forever Night. The second one was Babylon 5, Legend of the Rangers, or the Rangers.
That's much later.
That's later. That's what I thought. And then the last one is Kung Fu: The Legend Continues.
Oh yeah, that's early. That's the 80s, I think, late 80s.
Well, then that was probably it. I was thinking Forever Night, but I thought, well, maybe it's Kung Fu.
Yeah, actually, Kung Fu might have been after Forever Night.
They were close.
Close there. I mean, it was the 90s. Yeah, it was. But working with Carradine was a blast.
Yeah.
Because
you played Jack the Ripper, if I remember right.
Yeah, I did, and it was a very odd episode called, I think it was called The Brotherhood of the Bell, or something like I think Brotherhood of the Bell, and the director was a wonderful guy named Zale Dahlin, who had done millions of kung fu's and everything else, and Zale's pretty free form guy, and he was a lot of fun, and he'd been a director since the 50s, whatever, and he was a very cool guy. And Carradine was sober when on that episode when I worked, because he'd go on and off the wagon. But when he was on the wagon, he was great. I worked with him 3 times, and each time he was sober and he was on the wagon, and he was great fun. Just a lovely guy to work with. I had so much fun with him. But on that episode, he was unbelievable at doing impressions. He could impersonate anybody, and he would entertain us doing John Wayne talking to Walter Brennan, talking to somebody else, and he'd do all the voices, and he was very funny. And so he said, who else does impressions? Come on, all actors can do them. And so people went around the table. We're at this big banquet table, and we're all playing people that have been called from the afterlife to the present day. It was a very weird episode. Wings Hauser was in it, and
nice.
Carlo Rota and Heidi von Plesk, all sorts of key people, and everyone had their thing they could do. And Carlo Rota did an unbelievable Sean Connery, and Wings Hauser did a Jack Nicholson or whatever, and I did Peter O'Toole, because O'Toole is a god to me.
Very nice.
And I could do O'Toole. And so Carradine said, look, whoever gets called first, whoever they're going to cover first, do your impression when you do the line, and we'll see if Zale notices. And I thought, oh, well, that's, no one's going to do it. He said, no, you have to, and you get very intense, say, you have to do it. And of course, I got picked first. My coverage was first. So I think the line was something like, would you be so kind as to pass me a knife? It was something like that, And so I said, would you be so kind as to pass me a knife? Like just doing O'Toole. And so they go, cut, great, moving on. I'm so, oh, no. Yeah. And Carradine was killing himself. And he said, you got to do the whole show like that now. It's like, and I said to Zale, was that okay? He said, oh, it was fantastic. It was great. Wonderful. So moving on. So I had to do the whole episode as Peter O'Toole. And and Carradine never let me forget it. It was very funny, but we worked together on a couple of other films, and he was always delightful to me. And in fact, one of my happiest memories as an actor was spending time on a kind of low-end sci-fi film with him. And he had a guitar, and I brought a guitar because I played and had a band, and we played music together. He taught me all these old blues songs and traveling songs, and we talked about Mata Hari and you know, all just the authors and everything. It was a fascinating time with him, and I really got along very well with him. So
that's amazing. I'm so glad I asked. That's a great story.
Yeah, and it was you know, you can, I think it's always, you can have good experiences and bad experiences with actors, especially big stars. But everyone can have a bad day, and so I tend to tell the fun stories because they're happiest, and it's a good thing. You know, I've had some big, you know, Oscar-winning actors be horribly rude to me, but they were nice 2 days before. You know, so
they're just having a bad day.
You know, like, you know, you get, you know, it's not worth dumping on people. The cancel culture annoys me terribly. So, you know, only the good stories, unless they're really so bad they need to be told. But I've never had those. So, you know.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one was pretty bad, but not bad enough to tell. You know. Yeah.
So you've been at this now for 40 years or so.
Yeah.
You know, how did you get your start? What made you want to become, you know, an actor?
Richard Burton in Camelot, the record that we had at home, we had this. My parents had seen the play. They previewed Camelot in Toronto before they took it to Broadway. Yeah. They built the show in Toronto. And,
very nice.
And my parents saw the show. I don't remember going to it. I don't think I did. But we had the soundtrack, you know, the album of the Broadway stage play. And from the age of 5 or 6, I always tried to imitate Richard Burton's voice. And my parents thought it was very, very funny because I was obsessed with King Arthur and so on. But, you know, but
I've got a little of that.
The fact that I kind of understood it, like understood what he was saying, and I could do it at 6 or 7, was an indication that I kind of liked doing that. And I did school plays all through school. And my first role was Captain Hook in Peter Pan. And my mother made me a glove that she'd sewn these fingers down so that these 2 fingers were like the hook, you know, and the glove was painted silver, pre-Michael Jackson. You know, we're talking nice. 1963, you know, and 64. And I loved acting. I loved being on stage, and I love, you know, and apparently I was quite temperamental as a kid, you know. There's a great story. My mom used to tell me that when she made me this, I was playing a magical doctor, and she made me this cape. My mom made amazing costumes, and she made me this cape with all these mystical symbols on it and things. You know, it was amazing. She cut them out of felt and sewn them on this cape, and it was an amazing cape. And when the day of the play, the girl playing the princess had forgotten her cape or whatever, and so they asked me if I would give my cape to her, you know, so she could make an entrance. And I said, tell her to get her own bloody cape. And bloody was a bad word then. It was a bad word, especially for an 8-year-old or 7-year-old, whatever I was, grade 2, you know. And so I was, you know, the parents were called, and the little session was had about I had to learn to share, and I had to, you know, not be rude.
That's kind of on them, though. Your mom spends all that time on a cape. I wouldn't have loaned it to her either.
Well, all I know is that my parents used to delight in telling that story, and they said right then, he's going to be an actor. You know?
He's got the temperament.
And I'm actually not like that. I'm really not like that. I like to keep it light and fun on set. But anyway, and when I got to about 11 or 12, I started making movies with my mom's 8mm movie camera, and I write scripts and I'd do them, and you know, you add sound later, or you just have no sound, make a silent film. And I was doing animation, and my uncle was the founder of the Directors Guild of Canada. He was a well-known director, and he encouraged me like crazy, and introduced me to people when I was, you know, 14, 15, And my parents knew a lot of actors. My dad was a designer and he'd been in London for a long time. And anytime somebody big came to town, or when I went to London on my own, I'd get letters of introduction. And my mother, this is pivotal to me becoming an actor. My mother and my uncle were good friends with Christopher Plummer. And he was doing Cyrano de Bergerac in Toronto at the Royal Alexandra Theatre. And they wrote him a letter saying, my mom said, my son wants to be an actor and he loves your work and he's so excited, would you spend some time with him and meet him, maybe talk to him about acting? So he did. He said, great, wow, come after the second show. And I went, and he had all these friends from London and New York all waiting to see him. And he saw me first and took me backstage and showed me the backstage at the Royal Alex, which is one of the greatest theaters in the world. And, then took me to his dressing room and he was taking the Cyrano nose off and showed me how the putty worked and all that stuff. And he sat me down and then he kind of looked at me and he said, so you want to be an actor? And I said, yes, I do. And he said, do you need to be an actor? And I thought about it because I was 15, maybe 14, 15. And I said, I don't know if I need to be that. It's all I really want to do. And he said, that's a start. So we'll build on that. And he gave me this great sort of thing about you have to be 100% or not, just don't do it. And he said, if it's something that you don't feel you need to do, then step away from it. If the need's there, it'll come back. But if not, he said, it's a small room and a lot of people want in that room. And it really should only be for the people who need to be there. So if you think you want to be in that room, you have to stay and commit yourself 100%. That means when you're acting, when you're not acting, you're working on it. You're reading Shakespeare, you're reading things, you're working at it. And when you are working at it, you don't skive off, you work 100%. You have to give it that, or you're insulting the craft and you're insulting yourself. So can you make me that promise? And he said, can you make me that promise that if you want to be an actor, he said, can you make me that promise? You'll give 100% to it at all times and you'll dedicate your life to it. And if it doesn't feel like you need to be there, you'll step away. Can you make me that promise? And he was intense, and so I said, yes, I can.
That didn't scare you off?
Well, I was kind of like, I thought it's a challenge. I've always risen to challenges. I don't know. And I said, yes, I can. So he put his hand up and said, let's shake on it. And I shook hands with him and he said, I look forward to sharing a stage with you someday.
Well, you did a movie with him at one point.
I did. I was on stage with him and I did a workshop with him, and I did Counter-Strike, the TV series with him.
Yeah.
And then I did Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. And when I did Counter-Strike, which was 15 years later, I brought the poster. He'd signed a poster of himself as the Duke of Wellington in Waterloo. I brought it in. He said, where did you get this? I never get this stuff, He signed it to me and I brought it in when we were doing Counter-Strike, and I reminded him of that. And he said, so I'm responsible for this life of misery and rejection and pain? And I said, well, I haven't had any of that. And he said, what are you doing wrong? so he was, and he called the whole cast of Counter-Strike and the crew over. He said, look at this. And I signed this for him. He still has it. And he put it on the table and he was terribly moved. He said, we must have a picture together. It's one of my cherished photographs. So
that's
it was
amazing.
A Polaroid back then, wow. We didn't have digital. And then when I worked with him on Imaginary of Dr. Parnassus, I had since had the poster framed and everything. And I brought it in. He went, oh my God, you framed it? And I said, yeah, it's in my office everywhere, where it's always with me. It's never not with me. It's a reminder of the promise I made and the choice I made. And so we stayed in touch. He was, I think I could tell him about Canadian actors that he had worked with that had, passed away or whatever. I could keep him in touch with things. He was a lovely man. But anyway, that's really, wow. To me, that's where that moment is where I chose to be an actor.
What a story. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, he's one of my all-time favorite actors.
Yeah. He's amazing guy.
Yeah, just amazing. That movie, Andrew Garfield was in that.
Yes,
as well.
Yeah, Andrew was in that. Jude Law.
That's right.
What was interesting was Heath Ledger was in it, and he was on his way to come to Vancouver and stopped off in New York from London. They'd been filming in London, and that's when he died.
Oh, wow.
And so the whole picture was going to go under.
Oh,
But
I
then,
remember that. Yes, I've forgotten.
and then
that.
Johnny
Yes.
Depp and Jude Law and Colin Farrell told Terry Gilliam, if you need us, we'll be there. And he thought, we won't take a salary, we'll just come in and do whatever. So Terry got the brilliant idea, because he is brilliant, that to use all three of them, and they could all be different facets of the personality that Heath wanted to be through the Imaginarium. And it was brilliant. And they donated their fees to Heath's daughter, so she would have education and money and be looked after.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing guys. And they were all lovely. You know, I didn't work with Johnny. I've met Johnny before, but I didn't work with Johnny. But I watched, Jude and I had a day in special effects together, and we just had a laugh. He was wonderful. And Colin is so funny. He's a wonderful guy and delightful. Everyone loved having him on set. He was so funny. And so it was a really special time. The only regret I have from that film shoot was that Vern Troyer, who played Mini-Me in Austin Powers, he was a monk, like I was one of the monks telling the never-ending story. It's a tiny, tiny part. But Vern and I were standing side by side, and somebody said, "Oh wow, it's the monk and Mini-Me." And Vern laughed about it, and I laughed about it. I thought, no one had a camera? You know, like, we were dressed exactly the same with these metered hats and so on, you know.
Oh,
but
terrible.
But great other funny thing on that film was that Terry Gilliam insisted that all of us who played the monks have our heads shaved. There were only three of us who spoke, and so we had our heads shaved, and then we wore hats.
Yeah, you didn't need it. That's hilarious.
But Terry was lovely to work with, and I have a Monty Python paper book that I got in high school in 1973 or whatever. They're Paperbach, as they called it, and I brought it in. He said, "Oh, a lifetime ago." He said, "Well, let me sign it," because I'd helped him with the monks. They couldn't get them to coordinate going up and down all the extras, the background, and I had done dance, and I figured out a way to do it. So I told the AD, "I think I can get them in unison," and the AD said, "Well, if you can do it, you know, go." And so I did it, and I got them in unison. And so Terry called me the king of the monkeys, you know, and so I was in his good books, I guess. And anyway, he wrote me a lovely thing and drew me a picture in the paper book.
Wow.
Yeah. So very, very special. You know, like my agent said, "You don't want to do this. It's 2 lines." And I said, "It's Terry Gilliam.
Right.
I carry a bucket of fish across the state. I don't care. It's Terry Gilliam." And I had such a good time on it, and I met great people. And then he had me at the opening in Toronto at TIFF and on the red carpet and all that, you know. So
Amazing.
yeah, he actually was very happy. He said, "You have to be there. You have a cinematic first in this movie. You have a cinematic first." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Because I get frozen by Tom Waits. I can't tell the story that's got to be told perpetually. And I have this noise," and a little noise came out of my mouth. And Terry said, "Oh, no, you don't want any noise. It sounds like a fart." And then he went, wait, what if Tom Zapp turns your mouth into an anus?" Okay. And he said, "Yeah, just," you know, and so they had to refilm. I got an extra day out of it. They had to refilm stuff. So anybody who was speaking or trying to speak, their mouth turned into an anus, but mine's the first. And so Terry figured that's a cinematic first. So he had me on the red carpet at TIFF.
How did that not
for a
make
30-second role? Not even 15 seconds, you know.
Oh, that's terrific.
I think as an actor, you got to, you know, I was very lucky in my early 20s to have a phone call with Jack Palance, and it was unexpected. I was working with an actor named Henry Beckman, who was friends with Jack, and they were on the phone to each other at my house. And then Henry was cooking something, and he said, "Oh, take the phone, talk to Jack." So I talked to Jack, and then Henry came back and said, "Give him some advice, Jack." And so Jack, we talked for a minute, and he said, "Okay, so advice. I'll tell you this: take everything until you can be choosy about not taking it. Take everything, and you never know, that student film director could be the next, you know, Howard Hawks. You never know. So take everything, and don't be too arrogant about it, and give your all when you do it." And that was great advice. And, you know, so my agent said it's 2 lines, and I didn't care. Terry Gilliam, So
Love that. Yeah, and that's
yeah.
actually really good advice because you don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of these young kids now, I mean, they may grow into something. And then if you helped them out, when they were younger and not famous,
Yeah.
might pay it forward a little bit.
I'm friends with Malcolm McDowell, and he was talking about different directors who you've gone and done you've taken a discount and you've done the film and it's been arduous and they never call you again. and he said, so he's got his list of those ones,
Yep.
Hey, oh, it took you 15 years to call, did it? Okay, well, I'm busy. But
he's gonna get his revenge.
yeah. Well, and it's funny. I think that yes, there's sometimes I have a few rules about small parts that I want it to have a name. In one case, some guys who did a film that became a big, huge cult classic called Grave Encounters, and I loved the two guys who directed it, and they Grave Encounters took off like crazy. The whole film was made for 50 grand Canadian. So that's like $20 US.
Yeah.
And so
pretty good.
And it went crazy, went big, and there's a huge fan base and following and so on. And so they did another film, and they asked me if I'd come on at the very end and be this general, this mysterious general who like sets up what would be the sequel to the film, if they got a sequel. And I said, yeah, sure. For you guys, I'll do anything. I don't care. And I came by and said, but give him a name. Just give him a name. Don't just make him General.
That's right.
Make him General Smith. It doesn't matter. Just give him a name. And I have many actors who go through they write these parts, and it'll say doorman,
right.
At the club, or guard number 3 or whatever. And it's just yeah, guard number 3. I understand the guards have they're usually not specific, but if it's something like desk sergeant, why do you just call him Sergeant John or Sergeant whatever?
Right.
So it just looks better, and it's better in general. And note to writers,
give them a name.
Writing a character who's got more than 4 or 5 lines, give him a name, give her a name, give them a name, whatever, and a friend of mine, I had a series called The Net. It was based on the Sandra Bullock movie, and
really good.
And it only lasted one season, but it was a good series, and it was ahead of its time in some things about, particularly about computer imaging and paranoia and surveillance and all that stuff. And I was the bad guy chasing her every week, and a friend of mine, he auditioned for a part as our our pilot of our private plane. We're the bad NSA guys, and he did a good job. He got the job on his own, but I was, I really wanted them to give him something nice. And he said, yeah, but it's just pilot. He doesn't have got a name. I said, well, I'll talk to him about you getting a name. And then he did it. And they came to me knowing he was my friend and said, what's with this guy? He wants a name? Like, who does he think he is? Brad Pitt? Like, I said, no, come on. Just give him the name. It's like, it's just for actors. It's a better thing if you've got a name, And IMDb was just starting then. It wasn't about that. It was just about giving a name. And so they were like, come on, who's this guy? I said, he's a good guy. Just give him the name. So they came up with a name. I think it was Captain Bartlett or something, but it's just a little better, right? Captain Bartlett as opposed to pilot, like Pilot Light, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, so I think it's about a certain amount of dignity. We don't have much that we can grasp on, so you grasp on what you can, right?
Well, that's right. Yeah. I remember you being on an episode of Andromeda, which I also enjoyed. And then we were talking off camera about Lex Luthor. You got to play his clone on Smallville. Yeah,
that was, it was very interesting. I shaved my head for that, and I had auditioned for it, not knowing, they didn't say what it was all top secret. They didn't want to let anyone know, because Michael had said he didn't want to do it. He wasn't coming back. And so when I found out what it was, I thought, well, I should get my accent as close to his, and watched a lot of episodes of what he was in. I'd been in it playing his right-hand guy before. And season 6, I was Dr. Krieg, And
Oh,
so,
right. That's right.
right. And so I knew Michael enough to, get his tone down. So they worked on it. So the first day that I met Tom on set to do it, we were rehearsing the scene, and the director, Tom, was just like, started laughing. I said, "What's that?" He said, "You're freaking me out, man. You're freaking me out. This is amazing." I said, "Yeah, we found the right actor, and there it is." And so everybody was very supportive, and they still wanted me to make it my own. So, I was a little darker than Michael ever got. He always kept the charm going. And man, the day it aired, it was my first exposure to the internet craziness.
Yeah.
Because it had grown in the time, whatever, since I'd ever done anything of note. But that was an iconic role, and people were huge fans of Michael, and they did not want to see somebody else playing it, whether it was a clone or not. And then other people, it was a love and hate. There was nowhere in between. A few maybe in between, but there were people kept saying, "Oh man, you better go on YouTube," because people were putting up YouTube things showing me in the role of Michael and then blowing up, and some of them were quite funny. One gal who did one, that was, she had the song "Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better," and it would show me and then show Michael. Like at the day it aired, she'd screen captured or whatever she'd done. But it was the comments below that were so hurtful. Some people, "He's ugly, he's a terrible actor, he's shit," he's like, it was just awful. And so you should never get into it, but I finally just said, "Hey, I respected Michael. We're friends. I took on this role when most people wouldn't. And, whether I'm ugly or not is your opinion, but I'm not a bad actor. I have done over 200 movies. I don't think they were all wrong. And, there's a human being underneath this. So when you say these things, it's hurtful. And I don't care if you didn't like the performance. That's okay. That's your right. But don't say things about me that are just awful." It's, there's a human
good
being.
for you.
So she wrote to me and said privately, so I think YouTube has a way you can email somebody. And she said, "Are you really Mackenzie Gray? Are you really, no, come on, are you just punking me or whatever?" I said, "No, it's me, whatever." She said, "How can I be sure? Because people punk all the time." I mean, I'm so sorry that I said I did something offensive. I said, "No, I liked your video. I thought it was really funny. I just didn't like the comments underneath it."
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, can you prove to me that?" I said, "Well, give me your email, and I'll send you something, to prove that it's me." And so I did, and I sent her. I scanned one of the call sheet pages of the episode, and I blacked out, information she shouldn't have. And I signed it, and then I sent her a picture, like a headshot, and I said, "Is this okay? Is this, give you proof?" And she was knocked out. Like, I went crazy. And she said, "If you have a fan club, can I join it? Or can I run one for you? Can I do this?" And she completely turned around by addressing it in a nice way. And she went through her thing and got rid of a whole bunch of the comments that were really nasty, but man, it was like thousands and thousands of people weighed in. And some people said he should have been Voldemort in Harry Potter, but not Lex, they all had very strong opinions. But doing that role, it didn't get me into Man of Steel. But the photograph a Toronto photographer took of me, a dear friend named Taffy Rose, an amazing photographer, and she just said, "I love you with this shaved head. Could I do some shots?" So we did some photographs. And when I went to read for Man of Steel, I wanted to tell them, "Hey, I've been in the franchise before," just to let them know. And I did my audition. I got a call back, and there was Chuck Roven and Zack Snyder and Deborah Snyder, his wife. And so I did my audition. It was okay. They liked what I did. And then I said, "Oh, by the way, it's an honor to read for you. Thanks very much. But I also want to let you know, if you've had a chance to look at the resume, I've been in the family before, and I played Lex Luthor in Smallville and whatever." And I said, and I put a picture behind my headshot so you can see it. It was that picture that Taffy had done. And so they said, "Oh, let's have a look." And they looked at it and their kind of heads went like that. And Zack Snyder said, "Oh my God, that is a badass picture. Oh my God." Like, and because I look like this. And And he said, "Oh my God," he showed it to Deborah and she went, "Oh my God," they're all looking at it. So they have a little huddle and they talk and said, "Could we do this scene? There's a different scene, but we'll work on this one. But can you do an Australian accent or can you do a German accent?" I said, "I can do both. What do you like?" They said, "Say another huddle," and they say, "German. How about German? But not like stock, the evil Nazi, like a Euro German now." I said, "Yeah, I can do that." I said, "Well, you need 20 minutes?" I said, "No, I can do it now," because I have always been good with accents. And so I did it, and they told me some direction about how the guy feels and what he's expressing in it. So I did the scene, and Zach banged his hands on the table at the end of it and said, "You're an awesome actor. You're in the movie."
Terrific.
And I wouldn't have had that chance had I not had the picture that
Right.
was done after Smallville.
They
So,
just moved on, probably.
and it's just amazing how little things can get you somewhere.
Yeah.
That you don't think. I didn't plan it that way. I just wanted to say, if you're thinking about me, hey, here's a different look, and it was just, sometimes these things can go well. You can't second guess them, or you can't try and do it. So if I show them this, they'll do this. It'll never work. You've got to just, be honest about it. But, it was, I don't think at that point, I don't think I'd ever been cast in the room, where they say, "You're in the movie." That's it. Like, okay. What about the other 10 guys? What about the other 10 guys outside? No, it's okay. You never ask that. That's
question. Right. You just get out.
Just get out, walk away, and keep your head down, and don't say anything.
So you've also had chance to work on the Marvel side of things. You did the voice for Obadiah Stane in Iron Man, and then of course you were in Legion as the Eye, which is one of my favorite things that you've ever done, because that was such a great adaptation. Of that, it was very psychedelic and just different. I think
Noah Hawley, who adapted it and who created it, he's a genius. And people said the comic book of Legion could never be adapted because it's in the mind of a schizophrenic.
That's right.
And it's all twisted. And I don't know if Noah took that as a challenge, but he certainly did it. And when we were filming it, we even didn't know what was going on. I mean, episode 4, Rachel came up to me and said, "Have you read 4? Have you read 4 yet?" I said, "No, I just got it." I said, "Oh my God, we go through an astral plane and we change and our bodies change. And I don't know if it's real, but you're not real, but I'm real." And she was like, "We got to ask Noah," and then Noah would say, "Well, it's all there." Like he might have been more helpful with Rachel to carry the show with Dan. But, I said, "Do I have superpowers?" And he said, "Not really, but you have other qualities." And so you keep it enigmatic, because I don't think he wanted me to play it like I knew that I had these things.
Right.
And in that episode, I walk through bullets, I transfer into Rachel's body and back and forth. But, filming it was also broke every rule of television, and they do crazy things. And the crew were amazing. It was a Canadian crew from Vancouver and some from Calgary. And they'd worked on Fargo with Noah. And they would do anything. If he'd say, "Can you get up there with the camera and hang on the bottom limb of upper limb of a tree and shoot straight down?" They go, "Oh yeah, okay." They were a totally amazing team. I love that crew, and we all became a very good family. And but and we would reshoot stuff if a director came in and didn't have quite the left brain, right brain, underside brain going on. Noah would reshoot stuff. And all of a sudden it was, okay, that's different, so, just because he wanted to keep things enigmatic and strange and not in the literal plane, so it was amazing. It was a joy to do,
Yeah. And it was such a great role, and you were so good at it. It was, it was just terrific. That's the one they need to pull the Eye over into the regular MCU movies. I don't know how they do that, but they need to pull you over.
You can write to them and suggest that.
Yeah, I'm putting it out there.
Yeah, I know. I'd love it. I would love it, And I think there was all this talk about is Patrick Stewart going to join our show and all that, and that kept people percolated and going. Yeah. And there was never a plan as far as I knew. but they also, the show was very distinct. This Legion is its own thing. It's not related to the others,
Yes, that was so good, so good. Didn't you also do an episode of Fargo?
Yes, I did.
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, I played the episode I did was season 2, episode 8, and Stephen King tweeted that it was the greatest episode of television in the last 30 years. That he said no show does as complete a job of
it was a great show
of tying it in. The whole series was amazing, but
it was.
But and working with Kirsten Dunst, what a pleasure that was and a joy. And everybody else, Ted Danson, Jesse Plemons, everyone was lovely, and on my day shooting, I was there at 8 a.m, and then they couldn't get to, different things were tied up, and it was very complicated stuff. And I finally got on set about midnight, and I had this long scene with the Kirsten, and they filmed it normally over the shoulders, wide shot close-ups and stuff. And then they came to me, and the producers were there. John, who became the producer on Legion as well, and they said, "Okay, so Noah has this idea that we'd really like to try if you're open to it." I said, "Oh yeah, tell me what." I said, "We're going to put 100 lens, which is a huge long lens, and it's super tight, and we're going to put it so basically they're going to shoot it so close. I kind of know if I can equate it here. I've got my mic in the way, but it's like they're going to shoot it like right in your eye, and shoot just your mouth. It's going to shoot all that, and we want you to look right down the barrel. We want you to look into the camera." Really? I said, "Yeah." And so to get your focus, look at your reflection of your eye in the camera, like right down the camera. Okay.
Yeah.
And,
okay. I'll try
that. And so because it's so close, everything you did before, you got to take down super small. All right. So we'll just roll it. And if it's too big, we'll let you know. We'll do it again. So we get going. And by this time, it's almost 1:30 in the morning, and maybe closer to 2. I don't know. It was late. And so we start going for it. And I thought, well, there was one point where I said, "You want me to tell you, you want me to explain it to you?" And I'd done it kind of flippant like that. So I had to kind of say, "You want me to explain it to you?" Like, it had to be super small. And I got through it, and we did one take, and there was a couple of times they'd say, "Again, please," and I'd do it. But we did it all as one roll, finished it, and I got standing ovation. Crew, everybody, they were all pleased with all the producers wanted pictures and whatever, because I think they just figured it was going to be super hard to do. But and when they shot my mouth, the camera was like right here. I was sort of looking over the top of it, and I thought, well, okay, and so it was just unusual. So working for Noah is never normal, but I say that with the greatest love, because it challenges you,
That's so good.
Yeah, and I got nominations. There's awards in Canada called the Leo Awards. We have the Canadian Screen Awards, which are like Golden Globes, and and then we have the Actor Awards, which are like the SAG Awards. And the Leos are the West Coast. They're basically the West Coast Film and Television Awards. Right. And I've had over the years, I've had 21 nominations, and I've had 3 wins. And but I was nominated for Fargo. I was nominated for Legion, and I was nominated for Smallville, and all those. I didn't win those. I won other ones that were more odd, like I don't know if you know of a series called Dirk Gently's.
Yeah, I was going to bring it up. I love that series. It's so weird.
It's about as weird as it gets.
Yeah,
it makes Legion look normal.
It does.
And, actually, we filmed it at the same time.
Really?
Yeah, I had some days off between Legion starting up its second episode, and so I did Lux du Jour. But playing rock stars, I played a lot of rock stars, and it's funny, when I was in my 20s and I had a rock band, I never got called in to play rock stars, and I hit my 40s and 50s and I started playing decadent rock stars. So right, and particularly British ones, but Lux du Jour was supposed to be British, and then they changed it and wanted it American, because it tied in with the story better. So I was kind of essentially doing Keith Richards until they changed it, and I just made him who he was. But I won a Leo Award for that, for Lux du Jour.
Terrific. What was the name of your band?
Oh, in Toronto? It was called the Fridge Stickers. And we were just a fun party band, cover band really. But guys in my band went on to form the Headstones, who became a very big band.
Oh.
And our bass player, Lou Tucci, he didn't join the Headstones, but Lou went on to New York and worked with Julie Cruz, and toured the world with Julie Cruz and played with the B-52s. So
that's amazing.
and Louis is still in New York, and he's an amazing musician. He's a great guy. And just he can play any instrument. You say, here's a sax. Oh, he'd figure it out. He's one of those guys, And then I had a band here in Vancouver called the Wreckers, and spelled Rekkerz. And we were the official band of Wreck Beach, which is the famous nudist beach in Vancouver. And we were probably the world's first nude rock and roll band. And, you play on the beach. Nobody else was allowed to be amplified. It was very organic, kind of hippy dippy place. But we were allowed to have amps, little amps to, and the drum kit and all that. And we rocked out all the time. And our drummer, sadly, a couple of years ago passed away. With a like a coronavirus, but not COVID. It was something before. Yeah. And so we haven't played since then, but we would play clubs and stuff with clothes on, and rock it out. We were always a good time. We were a good band,
Don't you think that band needs a documentary? That's what you need to be working on right
now. Well, there's enough footage. We used to film, because we were all film guys that were in the Fridge Stickers. Every gig we did, we filmed, we taped. So we can see what we've done wrong and stuff. And looking back, they're fun to watch. They're
well, they have to be.
And Jamie, the drummer who passed away for the Wreckers, he always had cameras going to film us, not on the beach because he couldn't, but when we played clubs and so on. And sometimes little camera tapes of things just sounds like garbage. You'd have to do a lot of work to fix them up. But it's more about the fun, the fun that we had, doing stuff, right? But the Fridge Stickers, they were pretty well filmed actually. We had a big broadcast camera that a friend of ours had, and we filmed everything. People passed around. I'll film them for a while. I'll film, But
what was your instrument, or what is your instrument?
Well, guitar. I play a little bass. I've had injuries to my hands. Some years ago, squibs went off and blew up on my fingers. So that's as straight as I can get those fingers, and I have no feeling in them. So, but I can still play guitar. It's just tricky now. So as the damage has grown, it's trickier to play. I have to watch what I'm doing. But I play guitar and some bass, and I can get by on a piano, but I'm not really good. I can't really do a piano. But bass and guitar, but guitar mainly. And I write music. I've been in music my whole life. I started singing in a choir. In fact, my very first paid work as a performer was in St. Paul's Choir in Toronto. It's a massive cathedral, Anglican cathedral. And I was a choir boy, and then I was a head choir boy. And we got paid in the 60s. We got paid $4.50 a month. That included 4 rehearsals and 4 Sundays.
Very nice.
And that was gold money then, for a kid.
Yeah.
I started singing when I was 7 in the choir, and when my voice broke when I was about 12, I stopped. And
that's amazing.
But that choir was a very famous choir, and luckily, my voice broke before I could do it. My brother was still in the choir, my mom was, and Duke Ellington took his traveling gospel show around big churches that were set up for big performances, and he was with our choir for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and my mom and my brother got to sing with Duke Ellington. It was amazing, right?
Yeah, I can't even imagine that. That's amazing.
I know. I mean, I got to meet him. I actually sang when I was 8 with Ella Fitzgerald. So,
really?
Yeah, Ella would come to town, any town she was in. I don't know if she did every town, but she'd go to schools that had a music program and say, bring the kids. I want to work, just be with kids and sing and have a nice afternoon with the kids. And so our school was chosen. And so a bunch of us who were all 8 years old, we were taken down to the Royal York Hotel, to the Imperial Room, which is a big club. And we spent an afternoon with Ella. And there was no teachers, no parental rights. They just put us in a bus and took us down. And so, when, I got home and my mom, and dad said, so how was school today? I said, oh, it was great. They took us down to sing with Ella Fitzgerald. And my parents lost it. Like, what? Like they would have, they would have, and they would have been there and like they adored her, and I sang. So different people were chosen to sing things with her, sometimes in rounds. And so I sang Little Brown Jug because I was the only kid who knew it.
Yeah.
And because my parents had it. And so I sang Little Brown Jug with Ellen. So I was 8 years old. So,
Amazing.
Music's always been a big, it's always been a big thing to me. And I write music. Actually, I wrote a musical that I was commissioned to write. It was a $250,000 show that toured high schools, toured theaters, and the high schools were brought to it to encourage kids to get interested in math. I mean, that's like, to a kid who hated math.
But it was a musical?
Tall order. So I wrote a crazy rock opera musical. And my premise, which they didn't like at first until I convinced them, was the two kids who are the leads going through this hate math. And they've fallen asleep in math class and they're in a dream, and they get taken on this dream through MC Escher and through, fractals and through, Cleopatra. They meet Cleopatra and she talks about her tax guys creating pie and all that stuff. And there was songs everywhere. And I wrote it with a guy named Joe Doherty. He's an amazing musician who I collaborate with. And Joe and I wrote, a lot of it was his music on my words, and other times it was together. And we wrote this musical, and it started with this crazy song called what was it called? Mathical Mystery Tour, which was a psychedelic crazy thing. We had big huge screens and dancers that came out of the screens and all that stuff, because I wanted the kids who were probably coming going, oh, play about math, oh God, kill me now, and we wanted to knock them out, and we did. And it was a huge hit, and now there's some people developing it to maybe make a film out of it, in LA.
Really?
And so writing a rock opera was not easy. And I wrote it while I was doing Man of Steel. In fact, I was trying to work out songs on my guitar just so when we were offset, and we were allowed to make noise. And Amy Adams, it was bugging her. So she said, could you go do that somewhere else? Like, because when you're working out a song, it's boring. You're working the same thing and trying to do it. And so I went to my trailer, which was a mile away, but I knew I had time. And
come on, Amy.
And well, not a mile, but it was a long way away. And the radio was on in the trailer. I guess they'd put it on when they were cleaning it or something. And I was really struggling with the theme song of Math Out Loud. I was trying to do a bluesy groove thing. I couldn't figure it out, and which is what was driving Amy crazy. And Honey Pie by the Beatles was on the White Album. And it honey pie, you are making me crazy. And I went, wait, that as sort of a scat jazz thing could work. And I got the chords to Honey Pie, and I sort of changed them up and played with them. And I wrote Math Out Loud in 10 minutes. And so
amazing.
So I have to thank Amy Adams for being annoyed. gave me the theme song of the show, which was called Math Out Loud. And there's a great film. I hope it gets made, and it's been in development for a while. These two women wrote a hilarious little short called Earthlickers, which I was in, and I helped them with some writing on it. And now they're turning it into a huge feature. And it's about these 7 goddesses who are in silver spandex and pink hair and stuff. They're sent by the Oracle of the Universe to go to Earth to find out why there's so many negative waves coming from the Earth, which is throwing off the cosmos. So they've got to basically, conquer the negativity and bring love to the Earth. And they have these like orgasmatrons, and they have these love meters that they can read. And so, there's the 7 goddesses are spread all over the Earth, and one of them, her love meter is going off the charts, and it's a brony convention. and it's all very campy, and there's a woman running this evil empire that's putting negativity and fear into downloads for music. And her name is Hilda von Dildong Banger. Like, it's all double entendre, and it's all very funny. These girls are hilarious who've written it, and women who've written it. I shouldn't say girls are not girls anymore. And it's all campy, and there's great characters. So there's a character called the Masterator, and he's a cross-dressing space alien who's in this giant dildo-like spaceship, and he works for the evil Hilda, and he loves when he's wrong because he gets punished. She's the dom and he's the submissive, but he also has to run this ship, and he can't go to Earth, and he's lonely. So I've been writing songs. Each character gets a song, and it's in this. I've been writing the songs for the show, and so the theme song for the Earthlickers, for the goddesses, is called "Lick It with Love," and the girl said, we want something like Donna Summer but spacey, and I was thinking, what would I do? And I thought, oh. And I was listening to the radio, and I thought, Pink Floyd. What if Donna Summer and Pink Floyd wrote a song together? So and it literally wrote itself, like, in like 20 minutes. And so Joe and I worked it up, and we did it, and then we got a wonderful singer, a Black actress, who's just a great singer in Vancouver, and she did the Donna Summer, and then we got a couple of other actresses to sing in the background. And it's a very campy, and I'll send it to you on your email. We can't really.
Yeah, you got to send that.
If you want to hear it, but we can't.
Absolutely want to hear that.
You could excerpt it maybe 2 seconds, but so the song for the Mastrator is I was trying to think cross-dressing space alien, whatever. It's like David Bowie, and
that's who I was thinking of in my head.
Yeah, and I had just played Bowie in a TV show. And so I had Bowie in the brain, and so we spent many months getting it. And then Bowie died while we were writing it, while we were recording it. So we thought, oh, should we do it? And I thought, well, make it an homage. And then we finished it. And I played it for, I can't say which major studio, but like, Warner's, Paramount, one of those guys. I played it for him at a reception, and he said, this is $1 million song. I mean, this has visuals. I can see this going. He said, and I'll let you know something else. I was a friend of David, and he would have loved this because you got him right. It's so funny because it's really funny, ridiculous stuff. And it's called Asses to Asses. So I've got lots of music going. I just wrote and there's the pop star of this thing. I won't give away her name because it's a very funny name, but there's a pop star that all the downloading stuff's being done through. They've corporately written her songs and so on, where she really wants to be a songwriter and write songs about love and so on. And so I was trying to think who's hot, who's now. There's Rihanna, there's people like that. And my niece said, why don't you do Billie Eilish? And this was a few years ago when Billie was just cracking.
Just starting out, yeah.
So I fused a bit of Rihanna, a bit of Billie Eilish, a bit of things, and we wrote this song, and it's called Make Out. And it's pretty funny, so
I've got to see this.
I know everybody says, I got to see this. There's some people at Saturday Night Live who've been interested in it too. So, so it's got some legs. It'll get made. It's very funny.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, and it's a message. It's all about love, about finding love, and there's really funny stuff in it. And these two women, and now they've got a third writer. Another woman has joined them, and they're just writing great stuff. And they've scaled it down. They've taken it to various screenwriting workshops at festivals and so on. Everyone says, I have to see this movie.
Yeah,
so we're just trying to find someone who'll make it. Oh my
gosh, somebody will.
Yeah. And the songs, I'm proud of the songs. Sometimes it's hard to write a song specifically for something, but when they said, can you give us something Donna Summer? Well, it's opened up to you. And I say, you just copy the genre and find your way through. But it's, I'll send you the songs.
You have to. Yeah, you have to. That's amazing. That's amazing. So the new movie.
Yeah. Ditched.
Yes. Yeah. So we had Marika was on last week.
Great.
Talking. Tell us a little bit about your role in Ditch, because the movie sounds terrific. Although I asked her, I was like, I'm a big chicken. So is it something I'm going to be able to watch, or am I going to be hiding my eyes the whole time?
What did she say?
She said there was a few parts I might want to hide my eyes.
Yeah, there's a couple of bits. It's got a lot of there's some gore in it, but it's more a psychological thriller.
That's what she said.
And it's really it's not a horror film per se. It's not, it's not ghosts and things coming out of nowhere, and it's not Freddy,
right,
slashing away. But the violence when it does happen is pretty graphic, to make a point. So the audience shares the fear of the people stuck inside the ambulance.
Right. And that makes
Right?
sense.
Right. And so I think it's very cleverly done that way. And I think it's quite good. It's got lots of twists you wouldn't expect. And, I filmed everything in 2 days. They only could have me for 2 days, just budget wise and everything else. And there were forest fires, the giant, forest fires like in California were going on not far from where we were filming.
Jeez.
And so we were in the forest with, things on fire. And so I was like, oh my God, and where we were in this kind of pit of a valley, every mosquito in the world, in the planet Earth, was spawned there. They all come from that spot. And I was in a ghillie suit, like the snipers use it to hide in the woods, and the mosquitoes thought that was the best place to just rest.
Of course.
So anytime I came near one, the mosquitoes would fly off. I had to have DT, DEET or whatever they call it, all the way up my neck and my face. Like it was kind of brutal shooting it. But and also they had in the summer in the prairies, it was in Alberta, the light doesn't go down till 10 at night. You still have sunlight, and then it comes up at 4. So you had basically 5 hours to film. And otherwise you had to use a lot of filtering and so on. And 5 hours isn't a long time to get a lot of action, a lot of stuff done and so on. And so there's a whole sequence where I'm walking around the ambulance being evil, and it was about 19 pages, and I had to do it in one take. so thank God I'm theater trained, I can remember how to play. But and I had only gotten the script a few days before, because I kept rewriting it. So it was, I had a PA who I ran the lines with anytime I had a moment off set, to get there. And then she was out of frame beside the camera, so that if I got stuck, I go line, and she'd give it to me, and I'd take 3 steps back and then continue and pick it up and keep going. And a lot of the dialogue, it's basically he's saying why he's going after each person. You did this, and then you did this, and a lot of those things were very similar. It's like, okay, and I don't paraphrase them. There's a lot of actors who paraphrase and they get away with it, but in television, you can never do it. The writers are above, everybody. You say, hey, can I say if instead of or? And they'll say, we got to call LA. We got to check with the writers. But
check on that.
In film, it's looser. Like the poor writers in film, instead of saying, can you shut the door on your way out and get us a coffee? Thanks. They're not treated very well, unless it's a really established writer,
Right.
But I like to be word perfect. That they, as one producer said, when I wanted to change some lines, because the syntax, they condensed the script and the syntax didn't make sense anymore. I said, it doesn't make sense what I'm saying. And he looked at me, and the director, who agreed with me, and he said, we hired you to act, not to write. Oh, anyway, but anyway, so I tried to be word perfect on that, because they'd written good lines and it was whatever. So that was a long stretch, but I had to get it done because the sun was starting to come up. So it's like, you got one more take on this and that's it. And we just kept going. The Steadicam guy followed me around, so we got it done. So it was a hard gig, but good. I thought it came off well, and I thought they did a good job. And Chris Donaldson, the director, lovely guy, and keeps his sets, for such a dark set, we had a lot of fun on it, a lot of lightness, and and he was under a lot of stress. Most filming days are 12 hours. He had 5.
Yeah, he's doing less than half. That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Now is this, remind me, is this movie out or is it getting ready to come out?
It's on VOD, video on demand, and it's on Blu-ray. I think they have distribution, but
I think if I remember, Blu-ray comes out on the 12th, I believe, of February. Yes. But the video on demand's out because we are watching it in the studio this weekend. So we've got people. We like to do that at the podcast studio. We bring people in and Yeah, we
I mean,
do a
I
little-
saw it on the big
little
screen. They
premiere.
had a special screening for cast and crew at a big Cineplex, and it
Oh,
looked great on the big.
nice.
It looked great on the big screen. That's how movies are meant to be seen. You know, I as much as I appreciate that we have all these streaming services and we can
Yeah.
watch films and so on, and you know, if you got a big TV at home, I guess it's okay. But the experience of going to a theater still can't not be replaced for me as
Agreed.
cinema. And
Yeah.
same with theater. You know, watching plays that they've filmed, you know, at the National Theater, they show you. You can look online. Yeah, you get to see the play. It's not the same as being there. And I think when you see a movie on this big screen, that's where it's meant to be. You know, and it's not about ego. Oh, look, there I am, 30 feet tall. It's more like it just hits you with a different force.
Oh, it absolutely does.
And I think, you know, and it's an interesting, it's affected film criticism, I think, because critics used to they were given a pass and there were special advanced screenings for the critics, and they put people in so they'd have it, especially as a comedy, they'd fill it with people. You know, outside the AMC down in Century City, they used to flag you, hey, you got nothing to do for 2 hours, come watch our film and give us feedback. But those were the critics screenings. So
Yeah.
the critics would see it with an audience, and the critics saw it on the big thing, and they'd have to make notes if they wanted to, you know, a line or remember something. And so the way they saw the movie was the way it's meant to be seen. Whereas when they started sending critics just screeners and they can stop it and they can go back and they can do it, it changed the way the movie is. And so they'll say it just didn't have any impact. Whereas in the cinema, it's whoa, you know.
That's right. That's right. That's a good point.
Screener, how can it? You're watching it on a computer. And so I'm a big fan of, I'm so glad we have that, because right now with COVID, cinemas are only half full and some aren't. I don't know how it is in the States, but here we're still restricted.
Same here. Yeah.
And so you not many people are, and some people don't feel safe going to the cinema until it's really over. So I'm so glad we have it. But if film festivals show it on the big screens or whatever, it's always great to see a film on the big screen.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, that would it definitely does change the experience. And not just the picture, but just the sound, everything is just better.
Yeah, it's just the feel of it, you know. And also, you know, when people laugh collectively, you know, like, you know, I don't know if Leslie told you, but last November, I had my right leg amputated. I had.
Oh my gosh! No, she didn't mention that.
Earlier, I was doing a film and teaching in El Salvador. I got some water in a shower or something, had a super microbe and it went into my foot. And so I lost part of my foot, and they tried to save it. And so I had almost 8 months of walking with a cast boot and trying to protect the foot and so on. And ultimately they couldn't say, it wasn't healing and they couldn't do it. So they thought they could try and save it. And then I had to lose my leg. And so the next day, because I don't know, found out that morning I was definitely going to lose the leg. So the next day I put a picture on Facebook with, you know, people put photographs of their feet at the beach, you know, holding a Corona and their legs are crossed. And so I did a picture like that in my hospital bed of the one long leg and the short one, because I told people I may lose the leg. I don't know. And so I said, well, I guess it's a pirate's life for me. And I tried, you know, I kept it funny and positive. And all my posts after that were about just being positive, funny things and whatever, you know, showing a little leg, all that kind of stuff, you know. And it had a huge effect. I had thousands and thousands of people write me saying, you have no idea how this cheered me up. Right here, I've been crying about being locked in COVID and you lost leg, you know, whatever. So it was, you know, I was able to be, to some, I guess some people found it inspirational or whatever. But it's, you know, so you can overcome a lot of things. But one of the things I was so grateful while I was in rehab hospital, because you can't get a new leg until your leg is healed from the surgery. And thank God for Netflix and Amazon and, you know, streaming things, because you could watch movies and you could see things. And my God, it just saved my life, you know. And so I'm very grateful for those opportunities. But there is nothing really quite like being, you know, in a cinema where everyone gets the laughter and they all, you know, you share that. It's a shared experience, you know, as much as it can be annoying with somebody chewing popcorn in your ear and, you know, talking through the scenes or whatever. Not all cinemas are that bad, you know. So I still think it's a better experience, you know.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, Mackenzie, this has been the best. We got to do it again. We got a lot more to talk about.
I would love to talk to you. You're great to talk to, and I love,
thank you,
you know, your questions, man. So
yeah,
you know,
yeah. Well, and before I forget, so I always play this game with the kids. I'll go around and I'll say, what have you seen what have you seen this person in before? So my oldest, my daughter, she said, Dad, he's done like a dozen Christmas movies.
I've done a few. It's funny. I'm not Hallmark's cup of tea generally. I'm not all perfect in places, the ultra bleach. But I play these interesting parts, and I've done a few, and I did one with Barry. Why am I forgetting his name? This is terrible. From Rocky Horror, Barry Bostwick. And he was playing an old musician who'd gone homeless and gone away, and they were trying to track him down and get his old band. I played his bass player, and because I could play an upright bass, and I had really lovely scenes in that. It was very different. It was one of the first Hallmarks that had a Black couple as the romantic leads.
Nice.
Yeah, and so it was just nice to be a part of that one. It's a little different, and Barry was fantastically funny and wonderful to work with. And I played.
You were terrific. She didn't. I mean, she's got her very narrow stuff that she watches. So she didn't know you from anything else, but she's like, I know he's been in a bunch of Christmas movies.
Well, you thank her for me and tell her I think she's got great taste. I would just say with Barry, one thing that on stage, sometimes we'll have to talk about stage work because I've done a lot of theater, but one of the greatest roles I ever had was in the 21st anniversary of Rocky Horror. They did 5 productions around the world. That was it. And I was in the North American one, and I played Frankenfurter. And it was the role of a lifetime. And it was like 4 or 5 months of being a rock star. It was fantastic. And so I told Barry, and I had pictures that I showed him on my phone. Here's me. And he was like, oh my God, he loved it. And I told him the concept the director had, because Richard O'Brien wanted every production out of 5 productions to be not like the film, completely reinvented. That was his caveat. Yeah. And ours was set in Warhol's studio in the 1960s or 70s and early 70s. And the whole idea was that Frankenfurter and Magenta and Columbia had left transsexual, their planet, because it was dying of AIDS. And so they had to come to a place where they could have free love and spread the gospel of love. And they come to Earth, So it was done in the 90s as a 70s retro, whereas the film was done in the 70s as a 50s retro. And Richard O'Brien loved that, and we did it. And it was a huge production, and it was amazing. So, but what a role.
Yeah, what a role. What a role. We were lucky enough. They used to show that, like on the weekends at the midnight showing. I went all the time growing up, but we got to see it this past summer. They did it at a baseball park.
Oh, wow.
Had it up on the screen, and then they had actors. Wow. Yeah, they had actors acting it out on top of the dugouts while it was showing on the on the big scoreboard.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was really good.
And I imagine there was a lot of toast thrown.
There was a lot of toast thrown.
In the play, in the play, there's no toast scene. And they'd all bring their toast, and there's no place to throw it. So when we were doing our curtain calls, they'd throw the toast at us in the curtain calls.
The best part was it's a minor league baseball park here in Charleston, West Virginia. And their kind of unofficial mascot was the assistant mayor played this guy called the Toastman. And during the ball games, he would, for years, he has thrown toast just out on the field when he was upset with a call. So that was his, it became a skit. So then they showed, Rocky Horror. And of course, he was out there handing out the toast.
Oh, of course.
Row. So pretty good.
That's amazing. I love that as a mascot who actually disgruntledly reacts to the calls. Oh my God. It's funny because I'm a big hockey fan. I grew up in Toronto. Yes. My dad designed homes for the Leafs brass, like the Punch In Nice famous coach. And I saw them. I was at the last Stanley Cup game they won in 1967. I was there.
Very nice.
And so I bleed blue and white, like the Leafs. And of course, in the rest of Canada, especially if you're in Vancouver, hating Toronto and hating the Leafs is like it's taught in schools. It's a blood sport, And so you can't wear your jersey too easily down the street. But anyway, but it's always funny when any of us talk about sports, and actors love sports. Every actor I know pretty much. And so and particularly American actors, they're diehard for their, not just their major league teams, but their, double A league teams and their collegiate teams.
All of them.
Like that.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I really envy
We're
that.
fans.
That love, it's fantastic. Yeah. And they support it, and they're into it. And I love it,
Yeah.
So
good. So good. Well, Mackenzie, thank you so much. And we really do have to do this again, because I feel like there's so much more we can talk about.
Anytime. And I wish I had something new coming out. I'm on Nancy Drew right now, and it's a good series.
Yes, yeah. We've had a lot of the actors from Nancy Drew on. You're playing Father
Shane.
Father Shane, that's right.
He's a priest who's into the occult. So
well, that'll fit Nancy Drew, because it's a very supernatural take on Nancy Drew.
Yeah, and it's a lovely people. It's a really great production, great people, and a lot of those shows that deal with darkness are really great to be on. Riverdale, good people, wonderful people.
We didn't even mention Riverdale. Yeah, you're terrific.
I was on Sabrina. I was just starting on Sabrina. I had 3 episodes to come, and then COVID hit, and it shut it down, and then we got canceled. So did you still get an episode? I got an episode. Yeah, I didn't have too much to. I'm the physics science teacher.
Yeah. I remember. We watched that show.
I think
you've been on so many.
Dr. Muckle. And on Riverdale, I was Dr. Curdle, and I said, "What is with these names?" And Roberto, who the creator of the show, he just said, "Well, they could be related."
Yeah, you've been on so many of the shows that being nerdy, we love. You made an appearance on Fringe. You did an episode of Psych. Your episode of Psych, you played Gregor, and you were also Gregor on Supergirl.
Yeah. Funny. Oh, I didn't even make that connection. I was. Yeah. Psych, I had a lot of fun. Those guys were great fun. That was a lot of fun. They also did something you'll never see, unfortunately, but we filmed a whole B-roll of him putting the show together and doing all this stuff. It was supposed to be backstory, and they just didn't have time for it to go back, but they just said improvise it. So I went around to all these things they'd set up as fashion houses and going, oh, this is no good, this won't work, it's got garbage, ripping fabric. It's like we just had so much fun with it. I wish I had that B-roll, because it was pretty funny stuff.
Yeah, they need to release that with I don't know, something like a DVD extra or something.
Yeah, so it's all there somewhere. It was pretty funny.
Somebody's got it.
Yeah, and with the actress who I've forgotten her name now, but the actress who played my wife, who is the murderer, and the end, she and I just had a laugh and a half, doing stuff, and they had these giant, like literally 20 feet high blow-ups of us, in poses, like, and so we're looking at them, and she's looking, she goes, those are great, and I'm saying, I think he was a bit taller than me, that's a lie. Like it was just anything we could improvise, they kept. Anyway, it was a fun show.
Yeah, it's terrific. Oh, I got one more question, because I don't know if it's right, but did you voice a character in, it was like I don't even know what it was called, but it was like a future version of Sherlock Holmes?
Yes, it was Sherlock Holmes in the 21st century.
Okay,
that's what I was now thinking. They call it 22nd century. I did several voices in that. I think I played Watson. I can't remember, but I did several episodes of it. Yes.
It's been so far. It's been too far back. I couldn't remember, but it just I was like, I'm pretty sure that I've seen it. I've seen your name when it at the end of it when it's rolling, and I was like, because I've seen some of those episodes, and that's what I remember. It was like a future version.
I have a friend named Frank Garcia. He used to be a writer for sci-fi magazines and periodicals. And Frank can find anything. And he cuts demo reels for actors now. Because you can say, Frank, I did this thing in 1920, or whatever. And I had 2 lines, and I appear in the corner of the frame. And say, oh, I found it. Like, he's unbelievable what he can find. And so I said I wanted to do an animation reel. So instead of just having the voice thing, they put in, you'd have the actual character of how you voiced it. Like a visual reel. And so he's found all these things that I didn't even remember doing, like Madeline and, all sorts of stuff. And
right. Yeah. What a guy to have, because I always, with my wife, I'm always saying, well, you got to have a guy, whatever it is, you got to have a guy. He's your guy. He's your find lost
my guy.
film guy. Yeah.
And I've turned him on to a lot of other actors because, you know, we're always looking for stuff. And in the old days, you had to get permission for them to give you stuff for your reel.
Yeah.
And then if you taped it off the TV, it would have the logo on the bottom, you know,
right.
You know, all that kind of stuff. And taping off TV on VHS, you're already reducing it once, then, you know,
right.
all that, you know, on the old days. But Frank can find anything. He's amazing. And, you know, he's my guy. And he also finds stuff that he'll say, were you in this? And it looks like me. And I say, no, that's not me. You know, it's just a visual, you know. I try never to do uncredited work.
That's right. well, Mackenzie, last thing before you go, are you on social media? You know, where can we find you on there?
I am. I'm on Facebook. I'm on, I have an actor page on Facebook as well.
Yep.
I have Instagram, which I think is Mackenzie Gray 57, I think, and Twitter. There's 2 Twitters and a bunch of fake Twitters came up, and I used to have the check mark, and then I shut it down because I was selling people Ray-Bans and stuff, you know, and so the new one I haven't really done much, but it should be Matt Gray 57, I think, and Mackenzie Gray 57 on Instagram. And I've been very lax about it, but I'm getting back to getting it.
You need to get stuff out there.
Yeah, just, you know, to be thinking, you know, because I post on Facebook every day, but I could post on Instagram and switch it and put it on Facebook, you know, be the same thing, you know. So I'm just trying to get back into that cycle. There's a lot to do, you know, in terms of that. You need a guy.
You gotta have a guy. Yeah, you know? You actually do. You need to call up your fan page girl, get her to run all this stuff.
Yeah. The fan page girl is me.
Yeah, me too.
I've had many people offer, but whatever. I just want to say one last thing, if I can. We have time. A film I'm very proud of, that particularly for the geek world, but also just if you're in the horror world, whatever, was a film made by the Soska twins called Rabid, and it's doing a lot. It's been on Netflix. It's been on various things now. And Rabid was a film, an independent film that they made. These 2 twin sisters make these very dark, macabre films, but they got the rights from David Cronenberg to remake Rabid, his film from the 70s. And he doesn't give the rights to anybody, but he loves these gals. And I played a German fashion designer named Gunther, and but not as a character, you know, there's maybe a little character, but not really. I kind of based it a bit on Lagerfeld and some other guys, but it's all about body transformation and things going wrong and so on. But it's also a critique of the fashion industry and of the beauty expectations on women and so on. It's a really great film. And if you want to see a great film that's a bit gory in places, but also has got wonderful performances, Laura Vandervoort, who you might know.
Of course.
She's the lead, and
he was Supergirl.
Yeah.
For a little while. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of that. So it's a great film. So I'm always happy to also promote Rabid, because its release was big release in London, and then COVID hit. Like, it was a huge release in London, then it didn't, you know, it didn't really have the truck it would.
Yeah, I'll look it up. I may be closing my eyes in parts of it, but I'll look it up.
Yeah, there's only a few places, but it's really wonderful, and they're wonderful directors, and they've joined the Marvel universe, and they're doing some new series that they're creating for Marvel. So these are gals on the rise. So happy to promote them too.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up. Well, thank you so much, Mackenzie. This has been terrific.
Well, thank you.
We'll do it again.
And if you can send me your email, I'll send you the songs.
Oh, I'm sending it to you. Yeah, absolutely.
You can have a listen.
Yeah, hold on 1 second and I'll get you that. That has to be, it may be my favorite interview ever. And I've been lucky enough now to do, 300 some of these, and they've all been really great and fun. I've met so many just terrific people, but that one, I mean, oh my gosh, the stories. We could have went for 4 or 5 hours. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed that. We talked for another 45 minutes once I paused the interview, and he told even more stories You know, we talked about his work on R.L. Stine's, I think it was The Haunting Hour. Yeah, the Haunting Hour. And we talked about his work on Warcraft, and just, you know, portraying David Bowie, doing a character based on Keith Richards. And he showed me some pictures and he looked just like both of them. It was amazing. So I definitely got to bring him back because there's so many more stories to tell. So much fun. So much fun. Thank you guys so much for tuning in again this week. Really appreciate that. If you haven't done so yet, we could use the help on our YouTube channel, MeisterCon Pod. If you could subscribe, we would really appreciate that. We're trying to grow this podcast, and we're trying to bring in bigger and bigger and better guests, although I don't know how they could be better. My gosh, we've had some amazing guests, and Mackenzie was right there with them. But if you could subscribe, it would really help us out. You can find all 300, and I think it's in the 30s now, episodes, audio and video on our website, meistercon.com. If we're doing anything in studio, if we're going on location, if we're covering conventions, anything we have going on, it'll be on the website, meistercon.com. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.